Hey everyone, and welcome back. And today we're speaking about my personal favorite console, the PlayStation 1. Today we have a couple of games that we just think that need to be given a little bit more recognition and are a ton of fun playing.
I was always a Nintendo kid. I was obsessed with my Game Boy when I was young, which continued onto the NES, the SNES, and later the N64. It pretty much continues to this day. I never had the original PlayStation, but my big brother did. And I didn't get into the PlayStation until the PlayStation 2, by which time the PS1 hype had come and gone. So, I missed a lot of games. My biggest memory is the PlayStation 1, apart from that startup screen. My biggest memories of the system were watching my brother play Metal Gear Solid and Final Fantasy VII. Although I am a Nintendo fanboy, I can't really deny that the PS1 is a far more powerful console than the N64. James. This is one of the games I remember being absolutely awestruck when I saw it play. It is MDK. Originally released on Windows and Mac in '97 by developer Shine Interactive. They were the same devs that brought you Earthworm Jim in '94 and Enter the Matrix in 2003. MDK was later ported over to the PlayStation 1. MDK is a third-person run-and-gun style game that sees you play as Kurt Hectic. Now, Hectic is a fairly faceless protagonist that we don't really find too much about, except that he loves his robot dog, Max. Now, Kurt's been charged with the task of destroying these alien mining ships that are invading Earth.
Welcome to Earth.
Motion capture was used to animate Hectic's character model, similar to games such as Mortal Kombat and Virtuoso on the 3DO. You can also switch perspective to what's called Sniper Mode. This takes you to a first-person perspective where you hear this. So, you're running around shooting the shit out of shit with your arm gun and you come to a locked door. How'd you open it? A key? A switch? Nope. You use the world's smallest nuclear explosion. What? What?
What?
Now, that is absolutely badass. It's unclear as to what the title MDK is actually an acronym of. The obvious being Murder Death Kill from '93's Demolition Man, the movie starring Big Sly Stallone. Another possibility is documented in the game manual where Kurt's mission is named Mission Deliver Kindness to My Dear Knight in Japan. The original meaning of MDK from the company's initial promo is in fact that Murder Death Kill. A second MDK title was released in 2000 called Armageddon. Now I have no experience with this, but it's there and it might be worth checking out at some point. Although this is a game I definitely remember through rose tinted glasses, it's still fairly fun to play through myself today. I was divided about putting this next game in. After I sat down to play it again, it all came flooding back. The franchise is said to be the reason the survival horror genre exists, spawning games like Resident Evil, Dino Crisis and Silent Hill. The franchise is Alone in the Dark, the game being The New Nightmare. The New Nightmare was released in the PlayStation 1 in 2001 and is the fourth in the series and the first to be released on a PlayStation, as well as being the first reboot of the franchise, but more on that later. Alone in the Dark was originally released in 1992 on PC and was arguably the first of a brand new genre called survival horror. The series would go on to release a second in '93 and a third in '94. 7 years would pass before we'd see a new release in the franchise in 2001, by which time Resident Evil franchise would surge in '96, followed by the likes of Silent Hill, Parasite Eve and Fatal Frame. The New Nightmare was developed by Darkworks and would be released on various consoles. You play it as either paranormal private investigator Edward Carnby or Aileen Cedric, whose motives remain a mystery until later in the game. You work your way through pre-rendered scenes with fixed cameras, fighting your way through various creatures of darkness and solving puzzles, trying to discover what happened to your good friend Fisk, who was found dead on Halloween in 2001 near a mysterious island outside of Maine called Shadow Island. Shadow Island. Aye. What could go wrong? The game also features the industry standard in survival horror games, the typical helicopter escape ending. For me, this was the best release in the Alone in the Dark series, and its PS2 counterpart had smoother graphics, higher res cutscenes, and more manageable controls. The new Nightmare was also released on Dreamcast, which was then ported to Windows, and of course, the Game Boy Color. We'll no talk about the 2008 reboot. A sixth installment called Illumination was released in 2015. Now it's also the last in the series to be published by Atari, as the IP had since been purchased by THQ Nordic. Oh aye, there was a movie starring Christian Slater released in 2005, which Guinness World Records named the film the lowest grossing game-based movie in Gamers Edition 2008. It was great going back to this game, and it greatly helps me appreciate the genre it inspired. Definitely worth checking out. Now, for me, this next game defines the PlayStation 1. Whenever I hear that startup screen, this is always the game I think of. Based on one of the greatest action horror movie series ever to be released, Alien Trilogy. This was my introduction to PlayStation. Having already been a huge fan of Aliens, and by default Alien 3, I was absolutely blown away when I saw this game. I remember sitting at the end of my bed, wide-eyed and curious, watching my big brother boot up his new PlayStation 1 and this blasting through the TV speakers. It absolutely had me hooked. Alien Trilogy is a first-person shooter released in 1996 and developed by Probe Entertainment, which became part of the Acclaim family before they filed for bankruptcy in 2004. As I said, it's based on the trilogy of the Alien movies, with you taking the lead as the absolute badass that is Ellen Ripley. Now, I say based as it takes inspiration from. It's not a direct adaptation of the movies whatsoever. While playing through the game, you equip yourself with the iconic weapons in the movies. The smart rifle, the flamethrower, the pulse rifle, and of course, Hicks' shotgun. As Ripley, you blast, burn, and basically blow up the onslaught of alien creatures and facehuggers, with each world culminating in a battle with an alien queen. You play through levels that have been influenced by the movie, the colony in LV-246 for Aliens, the second one, and the prison on Fury 161, which is Alien 3, with the game culminating on what is called the Bone Ship for the original 1979 Alien movie. Now, the game also utilises the PS1 audio capability to increase the ambience and overall creepiness of the levels. The music is simple but very effective and doesn't draw for the game's action. Sound effects are creepy and unnerving when combined with the game's draw distance. Hearing aliens scurrying, walking around and screeching before you see them intensifies that horror feel. And a special mention has to go to the scan and beep for the Aliens movie, which lets you know when a xenomorph is nearby. The most horrifying and genuinely scarring moment comes for later in the game, where you encounter humans stuck into the walls of the xenomorph ship. They're basically used to incubate the alien eggs, and every time you walk past one, you hear the words. Again, mixed with the darkness, the music, the scan pulses, this is genuinely a terrifying section. This game still holds up to this day. Instead of using previous recorded footage, I actually took this opportunity to sit through and play the game again one more time. It's absolutely fantastic. What else can I say? Alien Trilogy on the PlayStation 1. Right, so like James said, this is his favourite console. I was never big into PlayStation 1. I was into Nintendo 64 at the time, so this was kind of a bit of a challenge for me, but these are the three games that I remember the most playing. MDK and Alien Trilogy. I specifically remember sitting watching my brother play, like back in the day, like sitting at the end of my bed, like I said, just watching him play these games. And Alone in the Dark, I remember getting a lend off of a buddy and just absolutely loving it. Like, I think this was after I'd initially played Resident Evil 2, and then I played this one, so I was still kind of new to the survival horror genre. But it was still a good game. Like, these are the games that I remember most for the N64. These are the games I remember most for the PlayStation, and I didn't hear very many people talk about them, especially Alien Trilogy. That needs to be.
Yeah, I was gonna say Alien Trilogy is absolutely amazing. I actually was gonna pick that for my series of games, but it's a game series that I remember playing a ton. Alone in the Dark, funny enough, I actually never played on the PlayStation 1, so it'd be quite interesting to check that out. I didn't realize that they had a Game Boy Color game as well.
Oh man, it barely registers as a game. It's so bad. It's one of the games that's bad. It's good.
Yeah.
But again, for it to have for it to be like a Game Boy Color variant is insane. Like, there's a PlayStation 1, there's PS2, Dreamcast, PC, and Game Boy Color. Like, gone are the days of that. They used to get a really shit demake, good game.
Yeah.
To port over to Game Boy.
I mean, those were the times, weren't they? That really was a sign of the times.
Those were the times to be alive.
They were alive. And MDK, funny enough, was one of those games that I saw in magazines all the time as a kid, but never actually played. Never actually checked it out. So I might personally check that out. That might be quite cool.
Going back and playing it, I definitely remembered a lot more. And it's a short enough game as well.
Yeah.
There's nothing really much to it. It's fairly generic in a certain way.
Yeah.
But again, MDK and Alien Trilogy were both nostalgia trips for me, in the sense that, like I said, I used to sit at the end of the bed and watch my brother play. And I remember when he got his PlayStation 1 and plugged into the old 14-inch CRT.
Those were the days.
They were the days. Yeah. Just that. The PlayStation's flash screen at the start is still one of the iconic things. Just the noises. Just the noise and the music.
Oh man, I know. I love
you hear that in a 7.1 surround sound or something.
Oh, can you imagine? Just pure tingles. So we're gonna check out my games now. So see what you think. Possibly one of the most influential consoles of the 90s, following the fallout with Nintendo after attempting to release a console in collaboration with the gaming giant. The PS1 released in Japan in 1994 and Europe. It came out in 1995. This was the console that sparked my love of gaming. When I think of my youth, it was filled with all the classics that everyone remembers, such as Crash Bandicoot, Tomb Raider, Tekken, Final Fantasy VII, just to name a few. However, there are more amazing titles that never get spoken about on this system, so let's get started and have a look. This game came out a year after the original PlayStation console. This wasn't just an exclusive to the PS1. It actually released on other platforms such as Saturn, N-Gage, Microsoft Windows, and a couple of other systems. However, this is where I play Pandemonium. Pandemonium was designed in the same way as such classics as Klonoa, Tumbi, and Wild 9. Pandemonium features Fargus, a Joker, and Nikki, a sorceress, who unwittingly cast spells upon a town which completely leaves it obliterated. The goal of the game is to reach a wishing engine where they can wish the town back to normal. For each level, the player can choose which character to be. Each has a special move. Fargus can deliver a special spinning attack, and Nikki can double jump. I always personally played as Nikki when I played the game. The console consists of a great variety of unique gameplay objects, such as watermelons, clouds, spiderwebs, and logs. While the game renders polygons in a typical 3D fashion, gameplay is 2D. These areas of the game as well are played in two-dimensional surface twisting and bending three-dimensional worlds. Occasionally, this surface will overlap itself. There are segments where the path branches, allowing the player to choose their course. It's worth noting, the game uses a password system instead of a memory card function to access each one of these levels. Enemies are generally defeated by using the usual platform method of jumping or bouncing off the enemy's head. There are power-ups located in each level with varying effects. One is a freeze ray, which turns enemies into ice, while another is a shrink ray, which reduces the size of the enemies to the point where the player can step on top of them. There's all sorts of other ones throughout the game. Whilst fun to play, this game doesn't come without its challenges. The levels are riddled with enemies and tricky obstacles, as well as deviating paths that make for sometimes very frustrating runs. I have spent many hours alongside my sisters trying to complete this game, and I feel it does not get the love it deserves. Croc and the Legend of the Gabbos. Now this is a platforming game developed by Argonaut Games and published by Fox Interactive. The game is an early 3D platforming game. Whilst I played it on the PlayStation, it did also come out for the Sega Saturn and Microsoft Windows. Taking place in the fictional world setting of Gabbo Valley, Croc and the Legend of the Gabbos follows a young crocodile named Croc who set out to rescue a group of furry creatures known as Gabbos from the evil magician Baron Dante. The game initially started development with Nintendo, and the game was originally supposed to be some kind of Yoshi game. However, Nintendo decided to reject the game shortly after the team started development. Croc has the same sort of feel as more popular game titles at the time, such as Spyro and Crash. You play the game as a green crocodile called Croc, and you have to navigate through 5 different islands. Now, what actually shocked me is there's over 40 levels for this game, but what they lack in size, they make up in charm. You have to fight a variety of enemies using your tailspin to defeat them, and the aim of the game is to reach the end of each level to transport you to the next level, while saving as many captured Gabbos as you can that have been imprisoned throughout the game. Quite often I found if I'm missing a gem, there was a hidden location somewhere and I hadn't yet found it, so it made me want to go back and explore just that little bit more. The bosses and guardians on Croc are made even trickier sometimes with the camera angle, and definitely caused a few controller throws and rage quits as a kid. In my opinion, it's a fantastic game that's worth looking at. Whilst Croc may be more simplistic than other game titles, it definitely makes up for it in its quirkiness. If you were growing up in this time, you would know there was a ton of racing games and car combat games on both the N64 and the PlayStation back in the day, and they all had varying gameplay gimmicks. The PlayStation alone had games like Twisted Metal, Vigilante 8, Gran Turismo, and Wipeout, and of course, this game, Roll Cage. Whilst Wipeout was kind of like one of my favourites and was definitely one of the best races of the shaped the PlayStation generation, Roll Cage was an alternative for all the speedheads that wanted something a bit more physical, a bit more gritty, and a bit more obscure. It has a fantastic soundtrack which is hard and heavy, much like the Wipeout series. The game has you racing around a futuristic track, and there aren't a massive amount of tracks to choose from, but to be honest with you, that's just right. They are drawn from a base of 4 locations, with you racing around different locations such as a tropical island, a neon lit city, mountains, and also other planets. Your car is flat and has 4 wheels, and that's all I can really tell you about it. But the great thing about this is that you can ride either upside down or you can ride on a normal level. Or, if you fancy it, you can just bounce around the levels like an absolute lunatic. Believe me, I did this so many times. It was about halfway through the game when I was younger that I realised that by pressing the circle button as well, that will resend to you so you can continue going, and I wasted so much time trying to readjust myself. The PlayStation version has time trials as well, which allow you to play in a 2-player mode. Sadly, though, it lacks an arcade mode of the PC version, which means a couple of tracks aren't actually playable in single-player mode against the computer. Roll Cage is another great racing game, and definitely doesn't get a lot of love. However, they did actually release a spiritual successor to Roll Cage called Grip in 2018, and again, it's very much an updated version of Roll Cage, and it was released on the Xbox One, PS4, and Nintendo Switch. So if you don't have access to a PS1, maybe check that game out on PS4, Xbox One, or Nintendo Switch. Okay, I'm definitely going to butcher this next one, but Sudakan, as RPGs go, in my opinion, you won't get better than Final Fantasy VII. However, a very close second is Sudakan 2. Developed and published by Konami for the PlayStation video game console, and the second installment of the video game series, being released in 2000, it follows the RPGs that followed previously in a turn-based battle style, which is my personal favourite, and it features a ton of characters as well that can join your party throughout the game. Sudakan 2 takes place 2 years after the events of the original Sudakan, and centres on the invasion of the cities of Jostan by the Kingdom of Highland. Now, it's got to be said, in this game, it's probably one of the most emotional rides that I've ever had in a video game, which I'm not going to spoil here, but I highly recommend for you to play it and check it out. What I will say is the overall gameplay of the story is one of the main reasons why you should check this game out. There is a strong medieval vibe to the game and is strongly based around the wars that are ongoing in the city-states of Jostan and Highland Kingdom. It is the emotions between these characters and how they're affected by the story that really invests you in the game. Sudakan 2's story is brimming with politics, war, slaughter, scandal, and the struggle of power of one psychotic individual that can have such an impact on characters' lives. You feel as though you're constantly under threat or fear of what will happen next. You're running from one place to the other. However, it certainly is lighthearted and funny at moments. The longer you play Sudakan 2, the more the localization issues become apparent. There are some gripes with the game that I have that are very well known, such as important character names being mistranslated from one text box to the next, capitalization errors that are consistently through the latter part of the game, and this can sometimes take you away from the story, and it can also make it so that you don't really get fully what's going on in the game. However, overall, this game is a full-on adventure with lots of exploration, side quests, mini-games that contribute to the fun and charm of the game. The music is another thing that I have to point out. I absolutely adore the soundtrack for this game, and it should definitely get more recognition just for that alone. But anyways, guys, I hope you check this one out. Roscommon Mcqueen was released in September of 1997 by Psygnosis. Roscommon Mcqueen is a firefighter and it is based around third person. Roscommon Mcqueen must stop the game's villains Sylvester T-Square and his robotic minions. The overall objective of the game is to put out fires before the building burns down. In the game, Roscommon Mcqueen goes through 15 towering infernos, fighting fires along the way. McQueen puts out the fires with a hose attached to a carry-on water pack and refills again by collecting water bottles. You can also get an axe in the game, and that also helps as your weapon because you can destroy robots with that. Deactivate power boxes and activate switches, and break down doors which prevent you from moving on in a level. You must also watch out for the temperature. There is a gauge on the screen of a thermometer and it rises if it gets too hot, resulting in the game to end. I would say this is a fun little experience that is definitely worth trying out. It definitely doesn't take long to complete the game. You can probably do it in just around 2 hours or so. The difficulty in this game isn't high, but you are definitely going to be able to traverse all the levels with no issues. The idea of the game is that you go around putting out fires and saving different people, and there are also some parts of the game where you can platform. The last thing I kind of wanted to point out with this game is the voice acting. It's kind of like really cheesy.
God's precious water.
It has a sort of 50s superhero vibe, which initially is okay, but after a while can get a little tedious. Although it can be cheesy in parts, this is definitely a game worth checking out. Released in 1997, this was developed by Boss Game Studio. The game begins in a laboratory where you are Peter Parker. Wrong franchise there. But no, you start off in a laboratory when things are about to go south, when a scientist creates a spider with a few mechanical limbs, and as per usual with the big evil companies, they want to take something that someone else has created. They end up going in and storming the place and shooting the actual scientist, but he's actually connected at the time to the spider via some kind of mind link machine. And then you're just kind of thrust into the game. Similar to Pandemonium, this game is a 3D graphic game set in a 2D style known as 2.5D. Now, I really feel like I need to point this out, but on the front cover, there's a picture of a spider, and one of the legs is like a shotgun, and the other one is a knife. What other game would you find this in? You play as a spider traversing around levels in searching for microchips, and you can keep track of these in the bar by the level select screens. Now, I'm not saying it was way ahead of its time, but I swear this is a PS2. Tell me this isn't a PS2. You're going to come across CDs as well that give you bonus videos from the team that created the game. Just a nice little bit of extra, but to be honest with you, through my playthrough, I didn't really bother collecting them. There are different abilities you can get through the game that can help you attack enemies, such as mechanical bugs that also must have escaped. You start off with a slash attack, and this is kind of like your main attack in the game. However, you can go around and gain other abilities such as a spider boomerang, poison, homing missiles, flamethrowers, and bombs that you can throw at each of these individual bugs. Now, this is probably one of the most obscure and strangest games that you're going to see in this list, and probably the entirety of the PS1 library. After replaying this on the PS1 recently, I can say it's a ton of fun and definitely an amazing style game. I'd love to see a remake of this. Before Tony Hawk's ruled the PlayStation world, there was Street Skater. This game is nowhere near the level of quality of Tony Hawk's, don't get me wrong. However, this was one of the games I played a ton before Tony Hawk's came out when I was younger. So, for the first skateboarding game for the PlayStation, published by Electronic Arts and Microcabin, there are two variations of play that include a street mode tour, where you can skate through 3D courses and trying to pull off as many tricks as you can within a time limit, and a free skate mode where you can basically just traverse around levels trying to pull off tricks and get your scores up. This game also has a versus mode, and this is fantastic if you do want to have a go against your mates. And the idea is a bit like who can do the most tricks to get the most points. One of the bugbears that I have with this game is if you bail, you do get points deducted no matter where you are, or even if you don't have any points, you still get deducted points. It can be extremely frustrating at times. 3 other traditional areas are available in this game, and you can get a go on like the half pipe, the big air, and the bowl. The main aspect of the game is the street tour, which is structured similar to a racing game. You weave your way in and through down sidewalks and streets and pass through checkpoints to extend your time and try and finish before the clock winds down to 0. The aim of the game, like Tony Hawk's, is to score as many points as possible, and you can do this with the 4 characters, which is TJ, Jerry, Ginger, and Frankie. Each skater has their own unique style, whether this be regular or goofy. And similar to Tony Hawk's, you can upgrade their power jumps, their corner end, the maximum speed, and acceleration. You also get different unlocks throughout the game, unlocking bonus skaters and revealing new decks. There is also an ability to increase the stats of your player throughout the game. Just like other skating games, one of the best things about the soundtrack, if you're a fan of 90s pop punk music, is you get music from bands like Less Than Jake, Palestina Mosh, Western, H2O, Straight Faced, The Pie Tasters, Eye Against Eye, and Gas Heifer. If you enjoy any of these bands, you'll absolutely love the soundtrack to this game. This game is very stiff in gameplay, which is refined in other skating games. Despite this, I had a ton of fun playing this game years ago, and I still enjoy going back to it and playing it to this day. It's always fun just revisiting it just for the soundtrack alone.
Okay, so those were my games. I know there was a fair few, but I still whittled that list right down. So, what did you think of that, Graeme?
Well, out of all the games that you picked, there was only the 2 that I knew, which is Pandemonium and Croc.
Both great games.
Aye, like Pandemonium again was one of these games that my brother had for day one. And it was funny because I'm pretty sure you done a 10-minute retro way back when on Pandemonium, and I was nerding out something hard at that when you done it.
Yeah, it's just one of those games. I absolutely adore that game. That's one of the ones that I just remembered like a whole lot when I was younger. Like that was the game that I played a ton when I was younger. So yeah, yeah.
No, it definitely rings that kind of nostalgia bell for me. Croc as well. Like I wouldn't say I would have been too big into the game. I remember playing the demo.
Yeah, I think a lot of people played demos. Yeah, I think a lot of people played demos back in the day.
I remember demo discs.
Oh man, I love demo discs. They were like that was the thing with Roscommon Mcqueen. I think for me, even though I've put it in this list, I've completed it since playing it, but I remember being a kid and playing the first level just over and over and over because I had a demo disc with Roscommon Mcqueen on it. It was fantastic. Loved it.
Roll Cage looks very interesting. Like PlayStation 1 had a lot of really good racers on it.
Yeah.
And like you said, like this had been remade.
Well, it's not so much a remake, it's more a reimagining. It was a really cool concept, and I gotta be fair, like I said, with races of the time, things like Wipeout and all that kind of stuff, it was all about futuristic races more than just your generic. Don't get me wrong, like Gran Turismo was like one of the top ones. Porsche Challenge as well. I don't know if you ever played that one, but that was one of the games I remember playing a lot. But this game just had edge. It was just different. It was grittier. It was amazing. And I gotta be fair, I actually haven't picked up that new game yet, and I'm quite tempted to pick it up just to see how it fares in comparison, because I playing back through that footage, I gotta be fair, I absolutely loved it still. So yeah, highly recommend checking it out.
Oh, 100%. What I talk about is Spider.
Oh man,
what
Spider.
What the hell, man?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's such an out there game. It was like, it's a really odd concept.
Is it just me, or is this generation was when they used to take a lot of risks on games? You know, before it was like yearly release games because they knew they were safe.
Yeah.
Like, you know, the same with Roscommon Mcqueen, they would just make up like. And in N64 as well, sorry, just to keep coming back to that, but it's like, you know, like back then, you used to make all these like insane IPs. Like they would just go on complete acid trips. And they would just like all these things. They would just take risks on games and stuff like that. Whereas now there's no much of that.
No, and you're absolutely right. When I first seen the whole thing of this game, I was a bit like, wow, that's crazy. And like growing up and thinking about it completely differently as an adult, I was still like, what? it just blew my mind. It was such a crazy concept.
Watching you play it, I was like, what the hell is this?
Yeah.
Like even like the artwork as well didn't make any sense.
Oh man,
it was just absolutely bananas.
I don't get it because it had a shotgun, and I didn't use a shotgun throughout the game unless I missed the shotgun weapon. I know you have like this thing that shoots bombs and whatever. Maybe that's what it was meant to be. But the knife just killed. That just got me because I just had little spider with a knife, like the crab meme, you know. But
Street Skate as well. That was cool. Like a kind of precursor to Tony Hawk.
Absolutely. And do you know what? The soundtrack for that was on point. And do you know it really feels old now. They're going back and playing it. It's still fun. But
definitely looked aged. It didn't age well.
It didn't age well at all.
But near the Tony Hawk then, so.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, actually, do you know what? When you go back and play the original Tony Hawk now compared to like, you know, Tony Hawk's 3 or 4 or 2, even 2 actually, it does.
Back and play on the N64.
Ah, look, he had that there ready to go.
Even worse.
He had that there ready to go.
Right. So Sudakan 2. So I know you're big into your JRPGs. So this was. Yeah. I wasn't surprised that you had one of these on the list, but Sudakan, I think it's pronounced.
I see. Now this is where I struggle. I can never. I've heard it being called many different things. Sudakan. Sudakan. Who knows? But yeah, no, what a fantastic game. Again, I didn't want to reveal too much in this because I do urge people to kind of go out and play it. But the story, my God, talk about an emotional journey. Like there's so much different stuff going on. There's a lot of war. There's a lot of politics. There's a lot of friendships, a lot of emotions. It's just a whirlwind ride. And again, I just urge everyone, if you have the means to play a PS1 game, definitely go about it. I mean, I'm not gonna say how you should go about playing it because the game is kind of rising in price, if not already stupidly expensive. But
You know what? Maybe I wouldn't have to whore myself out if you kids didn't steal my music.
But no, like I said, that would be the way to play it, and just chuck it on, man, and just enjoy the journey. It's a bit like that game is a bit like going back to a sort of like old film that you really enjoy. It has that same sort of thing. The emotions, you're like, oh yeah, I remember that. Or, oh god, look, it's got that kind of vibe, and I recommend anyone go out and play it. It's fantastic.
It wouldn't be my kind of thing, but you've shown a lot of newer games to me. Like I said, I only basically recently got into the PlayStation 1.
Yeah.
And I'm still finding all these new games. So
PlayStation 1, it just had the most insane amount of games, and like I think it was because it was so easy to develop for, like, you know, going from cartridge to CD just made the world a difference to people playing lots of different games, you know what I mean? And yeah, it was the real start of what I personally found to be like an indie scene. Basically, it's like kind of similar to what you got today. I think
the term is shovelware. I think that's the term. There's just so many games out for it, you know.
Yeah, I absolutely adore the PS1. I think it's full of fantastic games, and the like you said, even now there's still games that I'm like, I've never even heard of that. Never even heard of it. So
it's like another video for another time, but it's like PlayStation 2. Like there being like 4,000 games in PS2.
I was gonna say that video might even be longer than this one.
Oh god.
So yeah, but yeah. So anyways, I hope you enjoyed that, guys, and let us know if there's any PS1 games that you think we should be checking out.
And if there's any consoles you want us to check out, by all means give us a shout, because we're slowly working our way kind of through all the consoles, and we want to know what you want to see. If you've got any preferred games or hidden gems on certain games, on certain consoles.
Oh, he didn't say that word, did he? So, but anyways, guys, thanks for watching. We'll catch you next time.
Peace.